There's been an update on a story that outraged people across the country. So, Toronto police officer Michael Theriault has been sentenced to 9 months in prison for the horrific assault on Dafonte Miller, a young black man, 4 years ago while he was off duty. Dafonte was only 19 at the time. He suffered pain and trauma, including the loss of an eye in the attack. Again, it happened 4 years ago. And a lot of people, experts, are saying that this is groundbreaking, this sentence, as jail time for a police officer convicted of assault is unusual. What do you think of this quote unquote groundbreaking sentence?
Yeah, I agree with Dafonte Miller's lawyer that the fact that the judge in this case was using words like race, systemic racism in the sentencing of a police officer just frankly doesn't happen. I go to the point of people asking, is this a man who should keep his job afterwards? He's going to serve the sentence. I don't know how long he'll actually serve in jail. But the other part I look at is my answer is I don't think that he should be getting his job back. I know there's disciplinary hearings happening right now, and it doesn't look like he will because he's going to be banned from owning a firearm as a result of his sentence for at least the next 5 years. So there goes that. But I do believe that this turns now the police force and specifically the union onto itself, because there's always that line of like, who's watching the watchman, who's policing police? And we hear the words blue wall and the brotherhood and the sisterhood, and not to take away from all of that. They have very, very hard jobs. But I think in this case, if they want to be a part of the solution and gain back the trust of communities, you have to be willing to say to your own brothers and sisters, this is not appropriate. I'm still shocked that he was found not guilty of aggravated assault, because I'm not sure. I don't think Dafonte took out his own eye. Yeah. And aggravated assault, the definition is that you maim or disfigure somebody. So there's that. He was found guilty of a lesser charge, assault. And that was going to carry a much lesser sentence as a result. And his younger brother, who was involved, was acquitted of all charges. So the system is clearly still broken, but there has to be an example made of Michael within the force itself. There's a lot of evidence of potential cover-ups and things that are going to be looked at in the courts. But if the police are not willing to police themselves, then how are we going to build back trust? How are they going to build back trust in the community?
Well, here's the thing. They're not going to police themselves. I think we know how this story is going to go. And so for me, I'm not giving kudos to anyone for switching up language or bringing in things and naming systemic racism or police brutality if their actions aren't going to reflect what they are saying. I've been watching this case, and the first time it entered before the Crown, he kept using words like, it is telling, and suggesting that there was some kind of racial undertone as to what had happened to Dafonte Miller and just how he was brutally beaten by two men. But then the brother didn't get any types of consequences. So for me, judges' crowns can miss me with their language if they are not going to really lay down the hammer when it comes to actual consequence. And it's silly to think that, the police are going to entrust another police force to review the proceedings of how this all happened. We know how it all happened. It took months before the SIU even looked into this case. So if that is the cover-up that's happening there, imagine what the review process is going to look like as well. Nobody's going to tell on themselves and or call anybody out, because politics is a very real thing when it comes to police. And so for me, this isn't compelling. This isn't groundbreaking. Matter of fact, this just is not enough, especially when you consider that somebody lost their eye and could have been killed over this senseless act of brutalism.
I can't get it. I mean, when you think about it, again, he was 19, Dafonte Miller, and this was an off-duty police officer. He beat this young man, so hard with a bar that his eye burst. I think the details are important. And you have to ask yourself, what would be the penalty for a regular person if they did this? Better yet, you might want to ask yourself, what would be the sentence for a Black person if they did this to a white person? And I think we need to go beyond the jail time. This officer, I don't think, should be doing police work afterwards. It doesn't seem to be a job that is necessarily suited to, I would say, again, his disposition. And I think maybe one consideration also is to pay for all of the therapy and support Dafonte Miller is going to need to go forward in life. In a statement read before the court way back in September, Miller outlined the lasting impact of this incident on his life. And among other things, he said that the encounter has changed his view of the police in a long-lasting way. Who can blame him? We know that Miller's not alone in that kind of a feeling. And so if I were, to Mel's point, if I were a fellow police officer, a good-hearted police officer, a police officer who believes in equality, I would be really activating change among the people that I care about. I would be looking out for and reminding and doing startups within my organization. I can't imagine working for a place if there had been my colleagues, even not a direct colleague, but a colleague out there had done something like this and not deciding to reach out to other people to make sure that I was activating change, or else I wouldn't want to be a part of an institution that supported that kind of activity, ever.
You're right. That, and also why time and time again in the Dafonte Miller case, but also in so many other cases, we see police officers like rallying around the police officer that essentially stained your profession, right? Like, this is what I can't understand. I don't know. Maybe this is like the most basic thing to say, but if you have a profession that you want to defend and you love it so much, and someone comes along and they really are a disgrace to it, then why wouldn't you cast that person out? I mean, it's like lawyers, right? In the legal profession, they have actually officially a term that's called disbarment. If you are a lawyer who doesn't uphold the responsibilities of the legal community, you get disbarred. Mm-hmm. What is it about the police officers that are like, hey, if there is someone who doesn't uphold the qualities and the behavior that you are expected, why don't they get disbarred? Why is it that up and down and all around in unions and this and that, we get the defense of the person who is smearing your reputation?
I agree with everything you guys are saying, and I have to say, when this details of the story first emerged, I remember the divided reaction online, which was, again, just heartbreaking. Like, people using that argument of, well, Dafonte was breaking into cars that night, as if that justifies being chased by two guys having a dart in their garage and being beaten with a 3-foot metal pole until your bones are broken and one of your eye pops out of your socket. But no, race had nothing to do with it. And that people, including the police that night, believed that Miller was the one walking around with that 3-foot metal pole hidden down his pants, and that he was the one who was originally arrested that night. All of those charges were dropped. But again, no, race had nothing to do with it. And his mother described what happened to him as almost an attempted murder. And it's really hard to disagree with that. And it's hard to stomach thinking about Michael Theriault wearing a uniform again.